This is KE7K, Kevin in Portland, Oregon. I, along with Roger, KO4QMM, will be your net control stations for tonight's East Coast Reflector Tech Net. After celebrating 13 years last year, we're on net number 677. Each week we have a question for everybody to answer. This week's question is, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? Have you ever had a job that required you to use radio? So the order for tonight is we'll do the swap and shop with Kevin. Charles has some technical information to go over with us. Then we'll ask for any users new to the TechNet. Then the question portion of the TechNet. And then we'll move to general check-ins. First we will work the people that have texted in, and then we will make a call for people to check in. So with that, we'll get the festivities underway. Kevin, this is EE3BZ. Go ahead with swap and shop, please.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and good evening, everyone. This is another Kevin, VE3BZ, with tonight's swap and shop listings. I have a few here, starting off with Mike WB2GLW in Lake Ronkonkoma, New York. Mike has 3 Cisco SIP phones for sale. You can use those for hams over IP or amateur wire. He also has some, some cell phones. He didn't put a number there, but he has some cell phones that he'd like to pass on. They've never been activated. Good for Echolink, TV switch, or other ham applications. And he's open to offers on all these. Mike is good on QRZ. That's WB2GLW. Just send him an email if interested. Next up is from Timothy, N2TIM in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Tim has a very clean Heil Fin microphone from a non-smoking home. Includes the Heil Fin microphone, a Focusrite Scarlett I2 audio interface, the Heil CB-1 PTT desk stand, XLR microphone cables, a USB cable, original boxes, and carry case. Excellent setup for HF amateur radio, ESSB audio streaming / podcasting. Important note: buyer will need to get the proper Heil radio interface cable for their specific radio models. Local pickup preferred, but may meet halfway within a reasonable distance in Wisconsin. Just send him a message. He's good on QRZ, and you can also text him at 661-972-3951. And the next listing is also from Timothy, and it's another microphone, Heil PD77D. The bundle includes the Heil PR77D, original Heil box, the Heil windscreen, I said that already. I lost my place. The Heil windscreen is excellent for HF amateur radio, ESSB audio, AM operations, and broadcast style audio. Again, you can email Timothy for more information, or text at 661-972-3951. Again, his call is N2TIM. Let me reset. Next up is from Greg, KE2VW in Holland, New York. Greg has a wooden spool of RG8X coax. Was a 250-foot spool he's used 15 to 20 feet of. It weighs approximately 12 and a half pounds, but based on the size and weight, it would be too costly to ship, so he will be bringing it to the New York meet and greet, which is on June 20th, if not sold before then. He's asking $100, and you can contact Greg at 716-537-2830, and he is also good on QRZ. That's KE2VW. And that is all I have there, Kev. If you have anything for sale, trade, or want, just go to eastcoastreflector.com, click on Contact ECR, and SwapNet submissions. Or just email it to me directly at ve3bz@rogers.com. And my answer to tonight's question is yes. All right, back to Net Control VE3BZ.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. Appreciate everything you do to organize that each week, and your your control operating during the week to keep the system running smooth. Appreciate everything you do, bud. Next up is Charles with some technical information for us. KC6 UFM. The floor is yours, bud. Go ahead.
Good evening, Kevin, and everyone on the Tech Net. Many thanks to you and Roger for herding the cats tonight, and for Vicky to keep putting the cats in the right little boxes anyway. Usually get a cat in a box, but I think Vicky's job's a little harder than that. But first of all, on the question, well, of course, when I was in the Navy, I used radios there, but I don't really count that because just like the Army, it's not just a job, it's an adventure. But I've had several other jobs where I have had to use radios. Some of that depends on your definition, because most of those were MURS service radios. So just basically a glorified CB system there on VHF. But so I'll go with yes anyway. But yeah, as far as the topic tonight, a lot of people may do a double take because it's not directly about antennas. Going to talk a little bit about power supplies, because you could have the best antenna in the world, absolute best. But if you can't get power to your radio, it doesn't matter. It's just a fancy lawn ornament. But so every radio needs good, reliable power. But a lot of times, especially for newcomers, you look in a catalog or you look online at the listings there for power supplies, and there's all these numbers that are a little bit nebulous. There's talk about switching power supplies and linear power supplies, and the prices range from pocket change to second mortgage amounts. So I'm going to try and give everyone a little bit of information here to hopefully simplify this to where you can make use of that great antenna. The first thing is linear versus switching power supplies. A good way to think about that is that a linear power supply is a tank. They use great big heavy transformers to convert the voltage from the wall down to what your rig can use. The good thing is that they are absolutely bulletproof in terms of reliability. They generate almost no RFI, and they will last pretty much forever. The downside is they're big, they are very heavy, and they tend to run very hot. The other downside is the price on a linear power supply. They will be on the very high end of the scale. Reset. Okay, on the other hand, the switching power supplies, you can kind of think of those as like a featherweight fighter. They use electronic circuitry to convert the voltage. Not going to get into the details of exactly how that works, but there's no transformer involved. They are very, very lightweight. Typically, like a 30-amp switching supply. You can hold that in one hand with no problem. They're small, very efficient, very low quiescent current. That is, they don't draw much power from the wall when they're not in use, or well, not loaded down. Let's put it that way. But there is a downside, and it can be a big one. Switching power supplies can introduce electronic noise. A lot of people will call it a buzz or hash into your radio. That's mostly a problem on HF, but it does occur on VHF and UHF as well. But the biggest benefit is that switching supplies are much, much cheaper than a linear power supply. They're not going to last as long, but they are much cheaper. In general, for a new ham especially, go with a switching supply. Just as long as you buy one that is specifically built and designed for amateur radio use. The names Astron, Alenco, Samlex, those come to mind, those brands. Some of the higher-end switching supplies also have an extra knob on the front called a noise offset or something similar, to where you turn that knob a little bit and it shifts the electronic circuitry frequency back and forth to where if you are interference on a particular frequency of your receiver, you can shift the power supply a little bit and get rid of that noise. But what you want to avoid are the cheap power supplies that are sold on Amazon and eBay and AliExpress, places like that, mostly used for LED lighting. They are horrible when it comes to noise. Reset. Alrighty, the next thing I want to mention is, most people will talk about, you need a 12-volt power supply. Well, 12 volts is not exactly 12 volts for radio use. If you look on the back of your transceiver, or you look in the manual, it will say that it requires 13.8 volts DC nominal, or something similar to that. Just so happens that 13.8 volts DC is the output of a fully charged lead-acid battery. So, that's where, we call it 12 volts, but it's not really 12 volts. By the same token, if you dig into the manual a little bit deeper, you'll find that most modern radios are designed to work on the 13.8 volts DC plus or minus 15%. So that's roughly 11.5 volts to 15.5 volts. Anything in there, your radio is going to work. It may not be totally efficient, totally perfect, but it will at least work. Most switching supplies have an adjustment to where you can adjust the output voltage. What you want to do is you want to set that to 13.8 volts. The problem is if the voltage drops below 12 volts, on a modern radio, it may flash the screen, it may restart the radio, reboot it, but more likely it's going to distort your audio. If you go above 15 volts, you risk triggering the overprotection or overvoltage protection circuit in the radio, or worst case, you're going to let the magic smoke out of the wires. Neither is good, but if you set your supply to 13.8 volts, you're going to be good there. Next thing we need to talk about is the cleanliness of the power. And mostly what we're talking about is sag, which is when you key your radio suddenly draws a whole lot more current than what it was in receive mode. And that will pull the voltage down if your power supply is not sized properly, and we call that sag. Voltage regulation, which is the ability of the supply to stay locked at that 13.8 volts, no matter if it's transmitting or receiving. Good regulation also prevents sag, but that is again tied back to proper sizing. We're going to get to that here in a few minutes. This is KC6 UFM, reset. All right, and the last thing on cleanliness of the power is ripple and noise. Some people will separate those two. Ripple is where the alternating current of your wall, which is in the United States 60 cycles or 60 hertz, some of that bleeds through and comes out onto the DC as a little bit of a hum there. This is mostly caused by bad filtering. And again, we go back to those cheap power supplies designed for LEDs. LEDs don't care about ripple. Radios do. And so, you need a good ham-rated power supply to have the appropriate filtering. And that also ties into the noise. You're going to pick up noise from various sources, a lot of times the supply itself, and you want filters to get rid of that. Again, if you buy a good brand name switching power supply rated for ham radio use, it will have that necessary filtering. Next thing is the current capabilities. There will typically be two numbers on those big charts in the catalogs. One will be the continuous current, sometimes abbreviated ICS, and that is the maximum current that the supply can provide on a continuous basis. But you'll also see another number there called the peak or the surge current. And that is how much it can deliver for a short time. And that is there to help in charging capacitors, that sort of thing. Never use that number. Never use that number. Always use the continuous or ICS current. And then apply to that what we call the 80% rule. And that is that you should never run a power supply at more than 80% of its maximum capacity for very long periods of time. Let me reset again. Okay, taking all of that into consideration, just got a few numbers here for you. And this is based on the RF output power of the radio that you wish to connect the supply to. If you have a 10-watt radio, which is going to be most QRP rigs, almost all handhelds, that sort of thing, you're going to need between a 5 and a 7 amp supply. 5 to 7 amps continuous output power supply. For 25-watt radios, which a lot of mobiles and that sort of thing for VHF, UHF will fall into that category. 25 watts, you're going to need a 10-amp power supply. For a 50-watt radio, which, a lot of the newer mobile radios for VHF, UHF fall into that 50-watt category, and you're going to need a 15-amp supply. And lastly, for a 100-watt radio, which is most new HF rigs are 100 watts out of the box, you're going to need a 30-amp supply. But with all of that said, I would encourage you, if you ever plan to get a different radio, doesn't matter what kind. If you ever plan to get a different radio, buy a 30 amp switching power supply. The price difference between the 15 and the 10 amp supplies and a 30 amp supply is very small. That gives you a whole bunch. Plus, it gives you upgradability. All you have to do is buy the new radio, bring it home, plug it in, turn it on. You're good to go. You don't have to wait around and get a new power supply. Reset again here. Alrighty. The very last thing that we need to look at is the wire between the power supply and the radio. Because, again, you could have a great power supply, but if your wire is not large enough and it's strangling, if you will, the radio for power, you haven't really accomplished anything. And compared to the power supply and the radio itself, wire is cheap. And again, those numbers I did up above. Stand by one. CBG. Alrighty, I see we have people who don't understand the concept of directed net. Anyway, for the wire, if you have a 10-watt radio, you should use at least number 18 AWG wire. For a 25-watt radio, that wire size goes up to number 14 AWG. For a 50-watt radio, up to a number 12 gauge wire. And for a 100-watt radio, you should use 10 gauge wire. Again, with all that said, I would recommend that you just use 10 gauge, even if there's a power and a middle HT. Use 10 gauge wire, and you're going to be good for upgrades down the road. So, that's something else to keep in mind. Also, make sure that your connectors are good. Anderson power poles are very popular, and they do work well. I'm not a big fan of power poles for a number of reasons, but they do work. They're a little bit of a pain in the neck to install and so forth, but they work, and they're very good at that. You can also use the XT series of connectors that are used on like e-bikes and that sort of thing. So, keep in mind that, you spend a little bit now and you're in good shape there. Okay, I think it timed out because of the kerchunkers. But anyway, use number 10 gauge wire. That's going to give you a whole lot of expandability. And I lied to you, that was not the last thing. One more thing I want to mention, and that is noise suppression. There's a couple of easy ways to keep noise from your power supply out of your rig. They're both basically the same thing, and that is to choke off that noise in the power supply cables. The first one is to twist the wires together. If you've ever opened up a piece of network cabling, Ethernet cable, you'll notice that the wires are twisted, and that's to shield them. You can do the same thing with your power supply leads. Just give that wire a little bit of a twist, and you'll be good to go with that. The other thing is to put on either snap-on type ferrite chokes. Mix 41 or 43 or 31 are good choices. Right at where it plugs into the radio. That will help tremendously. What will help more is if you get a toroidal core, again 31 or 43 mix, and loop the power supply wire through that core 2 or 3 times. That will also help block it off. So, guess what it all comes down to, and what I'm saying here is to stick with the name brand reputable power supplies. Get a 30 amp right off the bat. You're going to be good all the way up at HF. And use number 10 wire and put some ferrite on it. That will will resolve the problems for you. Get your radio on the air, sounding good, and working good, and very easy. So, I'm going to pass it back over to Net Control here. Again, this is Charles, KC6 USN. Back over to you, Kevin.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. This is KE7K, your Net Control station for tonight's East Coast Reflector Tech Net. Next on the list are users that are new to the Tech Net. This is intended for people that have never checked into this net before. You may have been on the Reflector before. You may have checked into another net before. You may have listened to this net before. But if you have never checked in, this is your chance to get up at the front. And I will warn everyone that I got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, and I don't have time for shenanigans. So let's bat 1,000 and only have new users. New users only. Please come now with your call sign.
KA4 KYI, kilowatt Alpha 4 kilowatt Yankee India. Name is Ron, Florida. Kilo Quebec 4, Golf Tango Papa. Kilo Quebec 4, Golf Tango Papa. Name is TJ.
All right, let me hold it up right there. We got two stations. We got Ron, KA4KYA, and Troy, KQ4GTP. Good to have both of you here. I think there was one more station that doubled. Looked like it was coming in on a repeater in Tennessee, or a node in Tennessee. If you just tried to check in and you were not recognized, please come now with the call sign.
KB6JSU, Rob in Ormond Beach, Florida.
All right, thank you, Rob. Let me move my mouse. KB6 JSU. Thanks for checking in, Rob. We'll be back to you in just a minute. But we'll start with Ron because he checked in first. KA4KYA. Welcome to the Tech Net, Ron. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
KA4KYI, India. Yes, but not in the conventional sense. I had to link some sites together that we had to get creative because we couldn't get copper installed. So it was interesting how to get that done. For anyone that has the Cisco SPA 525G or a VoIP phone that has Bluetooth built in, I found an interesting use for mine because mine used to be on the Hamlink hotline, and of course they're gone bye-bye now. I was able to reconfigure the Bluetooth so that it acts like it's an external headset to my smartphone. So since I'm in a wheelchair a good deal of the time, I don't have to remember to keep the phone with me. As long as I've got the handset nearby, then I've got an easy way to use the phone. And most of the stuff that shows up on the phone display, on the cell phone display, will show up on the 525G. Well, I'm sure this would probably work for any other Bluetooth compatible phone. 4KYI.
I appreciate that tidbit, Ron. Thank you for checking in, and sorry if I didn't get your call right. We have it correct in the log, so that's all that matters. Appreciate you checking in, Ron, being there. Next up is Troy, Fort White, Florida, All three of these stations are from Florida. KG4GTP. Good evening, Troy.
Good evening to you also. I'm up here coming through Missouri tonight, my semi-truck, and to answer your question, when I started driving a truck back in the mid to late 80s, it was understood that you had a good radio in your truck. That was, I mean, it wasn't a law or nothing like that, but amongst truck drivers, it was understood that you had a radio in your truck. And when I used to lay asphalt and haul rock, we also had, we just called them big radios, Motorola's, where we could talk from the home base and, be told where to go and how to get there and what products we were on. So that's all I got. I'm pretty new. So I'll kick it back to you, Net Control. Thank you for taking me tonight.
Well, you're absolutely welcome, Troy. Thank you for being out there and checking in and doing your side of the net. So we have a reason to have one. Have a good evening. All right, last news station at the moment is Rob in Ormond Beach, Florida, KB6JSU. Good evening, Rob. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Hey, well, good evening. Thanks for letting me check in. So, this is at the far reaches of a stretch as far as using a radio, but my undergrad degree is actually in music, and I've had a side hustle as a touring and recording musician. I was formerly in Los Angeles, so maybe once every 2, 3, 4 years I'd get called for a really high-profile gig that used really professional gear, and so that you can hear yourself on stage. They'll give you some in-ear monitors that will kind of play back your own sound, so you can hear yourself. And of course, that's transmitting kind of between the 470 and 608 megahertz range. So just so I had an answer to the question, I'll say I had a job that used a radio.
That certainly counts, Rob, and that reminds me, I used to tape concerts as a hobby, and tape Dave Matthews Band shows, and for a while, they were not encrypting their IE broadcasts, and lots of people were taping those, and you get a lot of chatter between band members on the tape. That was always kind of interesting, and then they finally shut that down and stopped that. So thanks for checking in, Rob. This is KE7K. We are currently taking users that are new to the Tech Net. We've had 3 so far, and they were all new. Let's keep that ball rolling. If you have not checked into the Tech Net before, please come now with your call sign.
This is Whiskey 4, Hotel Oscar Oscar. I'm already on the log with a text check-in, but it's my first check-in to the net.
WV0QQT, Steve in Lincoln, Nebraska. First time on the net.
Kilo Mike 7, Delta Zulu Foxtrot. Warren in Kaysville, Utah, also first time on the net.
This is Whiskey 5, Sierra Whiskey Golf, W5, SWG, Scott in Texas, first time on the net. November 5, Bravo Mike Hotel, N5 BM8, first time on the net.
All right, we'll hold it up there. From the bottom up, I recognize Brian, N5BMH, Scott, W5SWG. One call sign we need to clear up here, the Kilo Mike 7. Could you come back with your call, please?
Yes, it's Kilo Mike 7, Delta Zulu Foxtrot DZF, out of Utah.
I appreciate the clarification, Warren. Looks like you have checked in one time before, so we'll ask you to stand by until we get to general check-ins. Steve in Lincoln, Nebraska, WB0QQT. Got you in the log. And Michael, W4HOO. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but you have checked in before, just once. So maybe it was a while ago. We're glad to have you back. We'll ask you to stand by for just a little bit. We do have you on the text line, so we'll slot you in here real soon. First up is Steve in Lincoln, Nebraska, WB0QQT. Steve, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Good evening to you, please, Kevin, everybody on the net. Yes, I used to work out at the Air National Guard Base, aircraft maintenance, and all of our trucks had radios in it. Anytime you wanted to cross a runway or tow an aircraft down a taxiway, we had to call Lincoln Ground. I think it was 121.9, if I remember right, and get permission, and it had to be very precise. I'll say that, or they would correct you if you did things wrong. Second time, after I retired from there, I used to drive a van for a company that was contracted to the railroad, pick up train crews and deliver train crews. And, of course, we had to have radio dispatch there. So, yeah, I guess 2 jobs, I would say. And enjoyed the net. I was just sitting here with nothing to do, and I thought, well, I might listen and check in for a change. Thank you for such a good net. WB0QQT Lincoln.
Well, again, thank you, Steve, for checking in and participating. Right after this new user section, we do have a question portion, so stick around for that. Sometimes we get lots of interesting questions and good discussion. Scott in Waco, Texas, W5SWG. Good evening, Scott.
Well, howdy. Good evening to you as well and everybody else on the net. Yeah, I've been in law enforcement for, I'm going on 37 years now, still in it, and obviously used radios throughout my career, so a lot of it. Back now is W5SWG, and I probably won't be sticking around. Speaking of still on the job, I'll be going to bed here fairly soon, get up and go to work in the morning. Back to W5SWG, Scott in Waco, Texas.
Very good, Scott. Thanks for fitting us into your evening. Have a good rest of your evening. And last on the log at the moment is Brian, Tylertown, Mississippi, N5BMH. Good evening.
Hi, good evening to everybody on the net. As far as the question, like Steve before, I was also Air National Guard, and we had radios in the trucks. And we would also power up radios on the aircraft and do function tests by calling the tower. So that was my only job that required using radios. Thanks a lot for letting me check in, and back to the net, N5BMH.
873, Brian. Thank you for checking in. All right, we're still taking users new to the Tech Net. Please come now with your call sign.
This is KJ5LGP.
Again, KJ5LGP, Lubbock, Texas.
Good evening, Victor, KJ5LGP. We've also got you down as having checked in once, so we'll have to ask you to stand by. All three of the stations that have come in have just had one check-in, so hopefully you guys come around more often, and we'll get you down the log here. Thanks for trying to get in there. Any other users new to the Tech Net, who never checked into the Tech Net before, please come now.
Kilo Delta 5, Bravo Whiskey Whiskey.
Hey, good evening, Darlene. K5 Bravo Whiskey Whiskey. Welcome to the Tech Net. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Yes, I did. When I was in the military.
I bet you that might be a popular answer tonight, Darlene. Appreciate you checking in and being part of the net. I'll make this next to last call for any users new to the Tech Net. Please come now with your call sign.
Foxtrot 8, Golf Sierra Delta, Kilo Foxtrot 8, Golf Sierra Delta.
Kilo Echo 9er, Echo Whiskey, Garrett in Indiana.
Okay, we picked up 4. Second station was Garrett, KE9EEW, and Chris, KF8GSC, got in there first. Chris, over to you. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Thank you, Net Control. Yes, I do. Every single year my family does a Christian Kids Camp, and since the cellular service and Wi-Fi connection there is so terrible, they have used FRS radios, and that was the gateway drug into this hobby, unfortunately. Back to you, Net Control.
Very good, Chris. Hopefully that's the only gateway drug going down at a Christian camp. Checking in tonight. Garrett, looks like you're completely new to the Reflector. We haven't heard that call sign on the system before. Welcome to the Reflector and welcome to the Tech Net. KE9EEW, over to you.
Hi, yeah. I have one time used a radio. I didn't actually get to use the radio, but I was volunteering at a air show, and I was parked under an F-100 Super Sabre. So they gave me a radio in case there was any questions or assistance needed, but I never actually got to use it. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much for checking in, Garrett, and again, welcome to the Reflector. I'll make final call for any users new to the Tech Net. Please come now.
Copy. Sierra Papa Charlie. Checking in.
KF8DWB. KF8DWB.
All right, John, we got you out in the clear, KF8DWB, and the station that was on Digital Bridge, Sierra Papa Charlie. Could you come back with your full call?
Go. Red. Northern Illinois.
Fred, you kind of got walked on the beginning of your transmission there. Nothing nefarious, just a key up over the top of you, but could you come back with your full call one more time, please?
Yeah, roger that. This is Fred here. N9AST, November 9, Alpha Sierra Tango.
All right, good evening, Fred. N9AST, we'll have to ask you to stand by for just a little bit. We've been on this, having checked in once before, but look forward to hearing from you in just a little bit. Let me try one more time. Was there a Sierra Papa Charlie station that tried to check in? Please come now.
This is Whiskey 2, Sierra Papa Charlie, W2SPC. My name is Steve. Checking in.
All right, very good, Steve. We got you that time. W2SPC. You tried to get in first. Just took us a while to work through it, so I'll have you pick it up first. W2SPC. This is KE7K. Steve, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Yes, thank you for letting me join the net. Yes, I did. When I was 18 years old, I went to work for the railroad. I worked on the Northeast Corridor for Amtrak, and we used radios between all the machines. We were on a track laying system between Boston and Washington, D.C., and it was a great job. And I have to say, at 18 years old, I grew up very fast. And so that's it for me.
Excuse me. Thanks for checking in, Steve. This is KE7K. I think I did that a second ago, though. John in Toledo, Ohio, KF8DWB. How was your evening, John? Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Never had to. I got handpicked out of high school to be a mechanic in a dealership, and I've kind of been there my whole life. So, radio's there, but I've introduced them. I coach youth football, and the last 2 years I've introduced my coaches and my staff to FRS radios, and they come in super handy for not not having to run across the field or scream across the field when you're doing things. And that comes in pretty nice. And that's about it. Not for my extra job, I have not. But, all right, everybody have a good one out there. Thanks for checking in there. KF8DWB.
Appreciate you participating tonight, John. I'll make a final call for any users new to the Tech Net. Please come now.
FSX, Kilo Foxtrot 8 Foxtrot Sierra X-Ray. I think I've been on the net before, but not sure if it was only on DMR.
Hey, good evening, Karen. Yeah, we've got you with one check, so we'll be happy to pick you up in here in just a little bit after we do the question portion of the net. I think that was the last call, so let me let it drop.
WW4REL, Whiskey 4, Romeo Echo Lima.
All right, well, we'll pick up Robert 2 then. WW4REL, good evening.
Roger that.
Robert, would you like to answer tonight's question of the night? Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Yeah, roger that. Yeah, I had two jobs. One construction worker talking to each other and stopping traffic, and the other was in a warehouse with a Motorola.
Very good. Thanks for checking in, Robert. Welcome to the Tech Net. Hope to hear you more going forward in the future. All right, we will move forward to the question portion of tonight's Tech Net. If you have an amateur radio related technical question, please come now with your call sign.
Kilo Foxtrot 8, Foxtrot Sierra, Quebec.
All right, Fred, the floor is yours. KF8FSQ, what's your question?
Yeah, I recently set up a secondary end-fed half-wave, probably about 10 to 12 meters from my initial one there. And I set up a separate radio, and I noticed that wherever my first radio is set to, there is a constant tone. Wherever the VFO is set, I see a constant tone. I did a little bit of Googling, and I saw that it might be a local oscillator output or something along those lines, but I didn't quite understand the connection there. So I'm wondering if you or the TechNet has any answers for me as to why on a secondary radio I might see a tone wherever the radio is tuned to. All right, thank you so much for taking my question and hosting the net tonight. This is Kilo Foxtrot 8, Foxtrot Sierra, Quebec.
Well, Fred, that is vastly out of my pay grade. I'm just a lowly net controller here. We'll throw it out to the group and see if anybody has a comment.
KC6 UFM.
Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Fred, my first thought would be that your Google results are correct, that one of the radios has an issue with either shielding or just a bad local oscillator that is sending out signals that the other rig is picking up. But there is one very remote possibility, and that is, and something I ran into once many years ago, and that is that if the two antennas are more or less parallel to each other, they don't have to be perfectly parallel, but fairly close, that it is possible that the two antennas are forming a crude directional beam, just a driven element and either a reflector or a director, and it's pulling in a noise from somewhere that you normally can't hear. That is extremely remote, though. More suspect, a hardware issue inside the radio, most likely with the local oscillator or the voltage-controlled oscillator in the VFO. Back over to you, Kevin, KC6 UFM.
Appreciate that input, Charles. Anybody else with a comment about Fred's tone on the radio from the nearby radio and antenna? Well, nothing heard. Fred, does that put you on a path of investigation?
Yes, it does. Both of those antennas are both roughly parallel. They are going east to west, and they are both technically resonant in the same band. I don't think I'm picking up anything far, far away, though. I have high doubts that's what's happening. Mainly because wherever I tune my VFO is wherever that signal goes. So, yeah. I don't know. It could be some RF coming back in the shack. Both of the radios are in the same shack. They're both coming through the same patch panel there. Everything in the shack shares the same ground, of course. So I wonder if there's something going on there. But the interesting thing to me is that the opposite isn't true. Where the secondary radio, wherever that's tuned to, I do not see a tone on the primary or the first radio. And I'll just throw it out there. I have one of those Team Luzon Special Shagu Golf Niner Zero radios, and that's the one that seems to be putting out the tone wherever I'm tuned to. So yeah, that is an interesting theory, though, that I'm forming some kind of beam. I do have some doubts with that, though. All right, back to you, Net Control. This is KF8FSQ.
Thank you for bringing the question to the net, and once you get to the bottom of it, come back and let us know. Lots of times we hear these questions and we don't end up hearing the solution, so look forward to hearing how you make out on that. All right, we're again open for anybody with an amateur radio-related technical question. Please come now with your call sign.
8FSX, to Net Control, I have a question.
Yeah, welcome back, Karen. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I would like to know, when you put up a J-pole, do you still have to do grounding with the pole, like the metal pole about, I think it was 8 feet deep in the ground? Is that correct? Or do you not have to ground the J-pole? Okay, I guess that's it.
KC6 UFM.
I wasn't even going to wait to call on you. Charles, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Karen, as far as the performance of your J-pole, it does not require any type of reference. However, there is also the safety side of things. If you get a nearby lightning strike, or heaven forbid you get a direct hit on that antenna without it being grounded properly, all that energy is going to come right back into your house. So for safety reasons, yes, it does need to be grounded. And kind of try and describe this to you. If you look at your J-pole, you have the long upright pole, a little between that and a shorter. Where you want to ground it and connect your ground wire is to the center of that little short piece that goes between the two uprights. National Electrical Code does require that it be connected, bonded to, if you will, your home's electrical service ground. And there's several ways you can do that, but the easiest is to just go straight to the pole that the utility put in right outside your service entrance. But for performance reasons, no, J-pole does not need to have a ground reference. But for safety reasons, it absolutely needs to be grounded. Back over to you, Kevin. KC6 UFM.
Great, thank you, Charles. And Karen, back to you. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does answer my question, and it leads to another one. I have no electrical knowledge, so how do I find my main ground that the electric company put in? How do I know where it's at and what it looks like? Okay, that's too good.
Charles, you want to keep the ball rolling?
Yeah, sure thing, Kevin. Karen, if you go around and look where the power utility comes into your house, usually your meter is right there, your electric meter, and the wires come down off the pole to the electric meter, or they come up out of the ground to the electric meter. And you will see right in that area, close to your house, close to either the base of the electric meter, or where the conduit comes up out of the ground to feed your electric meter if it's an underground service. And you will see a ground rod driven in by the utility. And please don't pull it out of the ground, but I can pretty much assure you it's 8 feet long and driven down very, very well. And you can just connect directly to that rod. And that will meet the requirements of the National Electrical Code, and it will also give you safety. Now, when you run the wire between the antenna and that grounding point, you want to keep it as short as possible, and you want to avoid any sharp bends. You also want to use a heavy gauge wire, at least a number 6 AWG wire. It does not have to be insulated. You can bury it, down a little bit where you don't run over it with the mower or anything like that. but just go around where your power comes into your house and look around on the ground there, and you will see that ground rod. They normally leave them sticking up anywhere from 2 to 4 inches above the ground. Back over to you, Kevin, KC6 UFM.
Again, thank you very much, Charles, and Karen, appreciate your question and participating this evening. This is KE7K with the East Coast Reflector Tech Net, where we are taking amateur radio-related technical questions. If you have one of those and you have a call sign, come now with your call sign.
Let's cue with a comment if you don't mind, Kevin.
Kilo Quebec 4, Victor Yankee Quebec. Kilo Quebec 4, Victor Yankee Quebec.
Hey, James, I recognize you for VYQ. Going to start with Fred. I think he might have a comment about a previous question. KF8FSQ, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Real quick, this is KF8FSQ. The last comment there about grounding. One thing that I did find useful with regard to the J-pole and grounding is DX Engineering has inline lightning protectors. Sorry, I'm in trouble tonight.
Were you still at the radio, Fred, or are you dealing with a dog?
There are lightning protectors that you can put in for the SO239 and other connector systems that you have there. And the last comment had great advice. You want to definitely connect that to your house ground. But the missing piece for me was figuring out that there's something that you can put in line where you connect your regular coax and your antenna line to ground there for lightning protection. So yeah, XNet, this is KF8FSQ.
I appreciate the comment. Fred, in the W5 station in Texas, we're in the middle of a directed net. If you have a comment, I'll make a call for those here in just a minute. James, Huntsville, Alabama, KQ4 VYQ. Go ahead with your question.
My question is a little bit more basic, but I'm sitting here trying to clean a hand mic with kind of has the buttons on it, and it's got the buttons have gotten little bits of oil and gunk and grime and whatever over the years, and sticky and discolored and whatever, and just trying to make it look a little nicer and not work a little better. Seems to work fine, but look a little nicer and not be so sticky. I was wondering what ideas you might have. I've tried a little bit of rubbing alcohol, tried a basic cleaning wipe, and they all do a little bit, but nothing seems to be actually getting fully on anything yet. KQ4 VYQ.
Okay, James, thanks for the question. Well, certainly, since it's electronics, we got to be careful about what we put on there, which kind of makes it hard to find a good cleaner. Contact cleaner would be pretty safe, but does anybody have any good suggestions on ways to clean a speaker mic with DTMF buttons on it? A good way to get those buttons clean safely.
Hey,
K4MMX.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig. K4MMX.
Good evening, everyone. By the way, put me down on the list for having a question for later. For the speaker mic with the rubber keypad, I've run into that several times on both HT keyboards and mics. What I use, if it's just not too bad, I'll spray a little bit of scrubbing bubbles on it and wipe it down. If it's really bad, I'll take the thing apart, take the rubber keypad out, which is usually one piece. I'll take a toothbrush, and I'm not kidding when I say this, scrubbing bubbles, and basically scrub the whole thing. Be very careful with the tops of the buttons that might be labeled. Don't do too much. And on the back side, a lot of them have carbon little pads that would make contact with the circuit board. When you're all done cleaning, you need to clean those with 99% denatured alcohol. Or even acetone I wouldn't recommend because sometimes it makes the rubber expand. But you got to clean the carbon pads. That's what I do, and when I'm done, it looks like brand new. But it's scrubbing bubbles, a bathroom cleaner. K4MMX back to that.
Yeah, thanks for the comment, Craig. I was going to add the same thing, that if you're comfortable with taking it apart, that the keys are just presumably one solid rubber membrane, that if you could get it separated from the actual electronics would be no problem to clean. Anybody else with a comment on cleaning speaker mics or a DTMF keypad?
I forgot to mention one thing, Kevin.
Mention away, Craig.
Yeah, if you take my suggestion with the scrubbing bubbles, it needs to be the brand name. Scrubbing bubbles, I think it's made by Johnson or something, whatever. You cannot use generic bathroom cleaner. It has to be the brand name scrubbing bubbles. Don't get it with the lemon scent. I've been doing this for years on all kinds of lighting equipment, ham radio stuff. There's a very big difference in the name brand and all the knockoff stuff. So that's all I had to say. So back over to you, Kevin, K4MMX.
Copy that, Craig, and we got you on the log here for a question in just a minute. James, is that a good start to getting that puppy cleaned for you?
Thanks, Craig. I would never have guessed scrubbing bubbles bathroom cleaner. I will check that out. That's a new one on me. A24BYQ.
Thank you, James. Craig, why don't you just go ahead and go with your question since we know you're here right now. KE7K.
Well, I went down the rabbit hole on the internet and I have all kinds of conflicting info. I have a Raspberry Pi 3 Bravo with a CM108. I soldered on the COS and the PTT wires, if anybody's familiar with that. What I'm trying to figure out, that supposedly there's a way to, in the settings of HamVoIP, to allow the HamVoIP software to detect COS, or when you're, say I'm talking on the radio right now, that it does it based on audio coming out of my node radio. The reason for that is I have PL decode on the radio, and the radio also has an actual COS out. but the PL doesn't affect it. In other words, it always goes to ground whenever it sends a signal, whether it gets through or not. So if you look it up on the internet, it says that there's a way to put the Raspberry Pi ham VoIP software into Vox mode, VOX, and wondering if anyone's actually done it and how.
Well, just as a disclaimer on the Reflector, we would prefer to not have Vox, but that's not exactly the question here. So first we'll see if David happens to be around, K4FXC. David, are you with us this evening?
Kevin, let me clarify what I just said. I don't you understood what I was getting at. I probably didn't explain myself very well.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, the node radio I have set using digital PL, DCS, and when I tee up my HT, which also has DCS, tone squelch, it transmits and receives it, or decodes, encodes. There won't be any audio coming out of the audio out of the node radio unless the PL tone or whatever matches. So my idea is, if there's audio coming out of the node radio, that means somebody has the correct PL tone, like me, and I'm talking into the node. It's just for use to open or toggle the COS so the node knows that I'm talking on my HT. That's all it's for.
Okay, I guess I am getting confused by your question. So your HT is transmitting DCS or a PL, and your node is looking for that as on the decode side. So your node radio is doing that for you. What are you trying to get ham VoIP to do in addition to that, or as a replacement to that? Can you straighten me out?
Okay, sure. What I want ham VoIP to do is when it hears audio coming from the node radio, that means someone's transmitting into the node radio and they have the correct PL. Then there will be audio coming out of the speaker out of the node radio. What I want ham VoIP to do is when it hears audio coming out of my node radio going to the CM108, I want it to automatically, based on audio, know, okay, I need to go into transmit mode, as if the COS is pulled to ground. Because right now my only option is there is a COS output on this radio, but it triggers on anything. So basically, if ham VoIP can detect any incoming audio from the node radio, I want that to be a replacement for the COS signal. W2BW mobile.
Yeah, a W2 pew pew. Pick it up, press.
Thanks, Kevin. Craig, when you say the node responds to any signal and not just with tone, it sounds like you have incorrectly connected to the radio. Generally, the radios put out a combined CTCSS and carrier on one wire, and then you send that to the CM108 on the COS input. You can have a separate one, but it's concerning that you say that it responds to anything. Are you in carrier? In other words, if you just send a carrier signal to your node radio, does it respond?
Yes, the radio is a Kenwood THF6A. When you put this, the radio has 3 different modes for the Kenwood T connector. One of them is PC, that's for programming. The other mode is speaker mic. That's not what I'm using. The third mode is TNC mode, where the ring terminal of the 2.5 millimeter speaker jack, the ring, the one in the middle, that gets pulled low whenever there is a carrier detected, and it doesn't not do it. The PL doesn't match. In other words, that signal is generated prior to the PL decode. So what my whole idea is, well, if there's audio that comes out of the radio and I have the PL tone set on the radio to decode, then that means whatever signal it's getting has the right PL, because then there's audio. From the presence of audio, generate the COS and let the node itself know I'm talking.
Okay, well, sadly, that's not a suitable connection. Japanese radios with the packet port, you're using a packet TNC connection. They don't respect CTCSS even if you set the radio to, because packet would never have PL, it would destroy the packet. So, you're either seeking a Vox situation, which is an optimal, or you're seeking to use a USB radio and not simple USB. But in that case, USB radio would take care of the decoding, but you would need to give it discriminator output. So I think that 6A may give you discriminator output audio out. But either way, it's going to be a long walk to get where you need to be.
All right, I don't want to take up too much time, but thank you, Press. I do have the option, actually, with another setting to put it in 9600 baud mode, and it'll give me discriminator out, but I already ordered a Sherry Pie hat, and who knows how long that's going to take to show up, so I was just trying to come up with a temporary solution, and the temporary solution that came to mind is Vox. If you know a way of doing it for just the next week or two until I get the Sherry Pie hat, that'd be awesome.
Is referring to the modulation scheme into the radio, not the audio provided out of the radio. Generally, the packet port contains both 9600, which is discriminator, and 1200, which is baseband, or shaped audio. But neither of those will be affected by the menu. The menu affects how the radio treats the incoming audio to its jack. Back to that, W2PW.
Can I make a comment back to Press, please?
Yeah, continue as you have been. Go ahead.
This particular radio, which is a small HT, when you, I have the schematic, service manual, and everything. When you actually put it into 9600 mode, and you have the Kenwood T connector where you would put your, programming cable or speaker mic. When you select that to TNC and 9600 mode, you won't get any audio coming out of it anymore. You'll get very low level discriminator out on this particular radio. It doesn't have one of them little DIN connectors that most mobile rigs have, or my ICOM 7100, where it has 2 separate outputs, one discriminator and the other one for 1200 baud packet. This one actually does the switching, but it's a moot point at this point because, like you said, it would take way too long to try to figure that out than the time it would take for the Sherry to show up. So, but thank you, Press. I appreciate all the info, and at least now I have a definitive answer about the Vox thing. K4MMX back to net.
Right, this KE7K. Thanks for the question, Craig, and press. Appreciate the assist. The East Coast Reflector Tech Net is again open for anybody with an amateur radio-related technical question. Please come now with your call sign.
Mike November, Kilo Oscar 6, Mike November.
KO6 Mike November. Good evening, Ed, in San Jose, California. Go ahead with your question.
A quick comment on the grounding. Like, I don't have a ground rod in front of my junction box. I work in plumbing, and when we do a complete water repipe, we have to put in a couple ground rods. Usually inside the junction box, where you have to take the plate off you're not supposed to and plug it in the ground side. And it can get kind of sketchy if it's all close and there's a bunch of live wires. It can get complicated with the grounding thing. But my question is with a 1 to 64 Balun I'm using on a 10-meter dedicated radio with a half-wave wire antenna, is there a chance with my FT991A I just came into, using that setup could damage the radio? I'm new to this, don't have a lot of information about it, and I know it's not the common Balun used for a end-fed wire, but I've gotten good results with that, just as good as the manufactured whip antenna, ground plane antenna I purchased. But could I damage the radio with that 1 to 64 Balun? She says people are using different things. And again, I'm using this with just a piece of wire from the construction store cut at half wave for 10 meter. But I want to know if I should avoid this setup and going with the nicer all-mode radio. Back to you, Net KO6 MMN.
Well, I'm going to kick this one over to our KC6 UFM department.
Alrighty, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, Ed, the short answer is no. You're not going to hurt your 991 Alpha. As you probably have read, the standard, if you will, transformer for an end-fed half-wave is going to be 49 to 1. With that said, in any real-world installations, a 64 to 1 actually works better. Without going through a number of hoops and measuring actual impedance and so forth, if the 64 to 1 is working well for you and your 991 Alpha's internal tuner is able to load that up and get you an acceptable SWR at the rig, you're fine. It's not going to hurt anything, and again, as I say, in a lot of real-world cases, the 64 to 1 actually works better for most people. I have both, and for most of my installations, I can't tell much difference between them. But for your installation, it sounds like the 64 to 1 has been working, and that kind of comes under the heading, Ed, that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Back over to you, Kevin, KC6 UFM.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. Appreciate the question. Ed, any follow-up?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm using a radio without an internal tuner. It's a Anytone NN 5.2 or something like that. It's something like that. Anyway, it has no internal tuner. It has an RX reduction feature. So I just literally cut the wire to half wave after playing around with an SWR meter, a cheapo. I'm not even working right. It's for HF. And SWR is not the greatest, but when the band opened up, I was able to talk long conversations with people in faraway states and contacts in South America, paralleling the, vertical whip ground plane is pre-manufactured, right? Anyway, thank you. Back to you, Net KO6 MMN.
I appreciate the question, Ed, and your participation this evening. All right, anybody else with an amateur radio-related technical question, please come now with your call sign.
WA9ZPM.
And good evening, Mike, WA9ZPM. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, the setup I got here is using ham VoIP, running on a Raspberry Pi 3. One thing I'd like to be able to do if I can on ham VoIP, if there's a way to lengthen the amountable time, I use the DTMF buttons on a microphone to make the commands for the connections and everything. If there's some way to lengthen the allowable time between digits before it thinks I've entered the command.
Well, that is one thing I haven't gotten into, but I'm going to put Press on the spot and see if he has an answer about that. Press, are you still with us, bud?
Hello? W2PW. Nope, I got nothing. Appreciate you thinking of me, though. That interdigit thing, I didn't know was a problem. I've never, had an issue where it was... Caller, what are you experiencing? Are you saying that if you send some DTMS, it winds up acting upon them before you're done and dropping carrier?
Well, it gives me the tone saying that the command is ended. I mean, I think it thinks that the command has ended if there's been a certain length of time since the digit was pressed. And sometimes I just can't enter them that fast. I just need to have, so I can enter them more slowly and have more time before it says, well, the command is done, I'm going to do it.
Well, I thought carrier drop was necessary to make it execute. May I ask how you're hearing this? I know what you're saying. You're saying the command taken tone. Where do you hear that? On a second radio, listening on the system?
No, I hear it on what would be the radio used with it. I'm using a radioless node, which means that coming out of the Raspberry Pi, there's the USB sound card. I'm using a kit for hams Paul. Is that? But instead of hooking it to a radio transceiver that would be used with a local radio, I just have a microphone speaker just connected right to that. So there's no radio. It's just a Raspberry Pi, the USB audio interface, and then just an audio amplifier and speaker to listen to it, and a DTMF microphone with an appropriate preamplifier to go into where the receive audio would from the radio, the link radio, over.
Yeah, I get the idea. Do you have any indication that your PTT or really COS, but your push to send, your push to talk is dropping early? Like, is it a good, solid yes-no situation, or is it maybe a little shaky?
take another look, but there is a light. The pole does have white LEDs, and the push-to-talk on the microphone is going into the COS input on the interface. And to my knowledge, that has been steady. I think it sees the command by just time after the last tone was pressed. Over.
Well, every time I use it seems to be carrier drop or let go of COS or let go of your push to speak to execute. Yeah, I don't really know. I'm intrigued by this. One last question: are you in full duplex mode in duplex equals 3, or are you in duplex equals 1?
I think it's duplex equals 3. It is full duplex. So if I got the push to talk pressed down, I can hear things through the speaker. So yeah, I am full duplex with the audio.
Okay, I'm not saying it's your solution, and I'm not saying it's your cause, and you will lose that lovely duplex effect, but it couldn't hurt to try duplex equals 1 just for a little bit and see if it works more as expected. If that's the case, I think we need to turn this conversation on to K4FXC. I think you would have a better handle on this, but I wish you luck, and let us know.
Okay, well, thank you much. I got the thing working. I had a difficult time, and I think a lot of it's just the instructions I had just didn't tell you everything, and I had to have somebody else more experienced help me out to get through it, but I did finally get it going here, and I'm quite happy with it. Over.
Good. Well, don't. All right, that's okay. I'm using a phone here. You can do image backups of your entire card. You can also save your rpt.conf and your simplyusb.conf. You can make copies of those files as saved indications. Whenever I mess with a file, like rpt.conf, I will save it first as rpt.conf.today's date or whatever, and then edit the rpt.conf. If something goes awry, you can always just quickly roll it back.
Yeah, I think you mentioned RBT. There's two ways to work with it, but what I ended up doing is I ended up using, let me reset here. Yeah, I was getting something in there. I just want to make sure I had reset it properly or cleared it properly. But whether there's one software to use another computer to get to it, but the other one is I just took a keyboard and screen right up to the Raspberry Pi and work with the SSH part of it that way. Over.
Or any way you want to skin the cat. I'm just saying, if you want to make an adjustment to rpt.conf or anything else, first you copy rpt.conf to something, dot saved or dot working or dot before I mess with it, whatever you want to call it. And then change, because you commented before it took you a long time to get things going, and I really understand that. So your hesitancy to mess with it is quite understandable, but it's pretty easy to make a fail-safe. Back to you.
Okay, I'd have to know, I guess as an RPT file, but I'd have to know exactly what to change there. I know there's a lot of statements in there. I looked through one of those files and I couldn't see anything that related to the time you have between digits. But if there is a specific parameter regarding interdigit time that I could change, it's just a matter of changing a number, then just changing that one number shouldn't be too difficult. But anyway, it's not an urgent thing. It's just if I can get through the numbers fast enough, I always have to memorize it to avoid hesitating in between. And at my age, I'm 74 years old, and it takes longer for me to sometimes recall things over.
Yeah, I don't recall any interdigit requirement, and I think it's always carrier drop equals execute. So that's leading me towards a hardware issue of some sort. Oops, sorry. That's all I can think of. Wait, thank you for the opportunity, and back to net, W2PW.
Okay, Press, appreciate you letting me put you on the spot and doing a little troubleshooting there with Mike. I appreciate both of you. This is KE7K with the East Coast Reflector Tech Net. I'm going to make one more call, final call, for any stations with amateur radio related technical questions. Please come now.
Kilo Quebec 4, Golf Whiskey Oscar. Kilo Quebec 4, Golf Whiskey Oscar.
Good evening, William. KQ4GWO. Go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Net Control. Good evening to everybody out there. Yeah, my question is, I'm putting together 18 feet coax with two 259 connectors on the end. So should I make the coax exactly 18 feet, or should I make it shorter or longer to make up for the 259 end connector on the end?
Or when you say compensate, you're trying to, the loss in the connector. I mean, obviously, the shorter is going to be better, other than it possibly becoming an antenna somehow. But is that what you're saying? That since you've got loss in the connectors, should you make your coax length shorter?
No, I apologize. I need to reword the question. Okay, I'm making an 18 feet coax with 259 connectors on both ends. So the question is, should I make it 18 feet and then just put the end on it, or should I make it a different length?
Okay, before I pass it to Charles, let me ask you one more question, and then Charles, you can pick it up after William's answer. But is there a specific band that you're going to be using this on, William?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
All right. Well, Charles, do you have any comments on what final length William should end up here with his coax?
Thank you, Kevin. The real bottom line, William, is that the coax needs to be long enough to reach from where you're going from to where you're going to. Any longer, you're wasting coax, which is not cheap stuff, and you're adding even minuscule amounts of loss. Obviously, if it's too short to reach, that's a whole other problem. But otherwise, it doesn't matter. The length of that coax, if you're just feeding from a radio to your antenna, the length of the coax does not matter. Don't worry about that too much, unless you are dealing with a situation that Kevin kind of hinted at there. Sometimes if you're very, very close to another transmitter, there may be need to adjust the coax length to make it non-resonant. But I don't think that's the situation that you have here. But additionally, I'm not real clear on what you're trying to accomplish, but additionally, you do need to add, subtract rather, about an inch for the two connectors. You'll just round that off to a half inch per connector, and if you need exactly 18 feet of cable, make it 17 feet and 11 inches, and you're going to be fine. But I don't think that's the situation that you have here. But otherwise, the length does not matter, but keep it as short as you can, and definitely don't make it too short, because then you get to do it all again, William. So back over to you, Kevin, KC6 UFM.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate all the knowledge you've dropped on us this evening, and being here each week to field some of these questions. Okay, everybody, that's the end of my time for the time being. I'll be back for general check-ins here in a little bit. But now, all knobs to the right, Roger is going to take us through the text check-ins. So KO4QMM, the net is yours, buddy. KE7K. Talk to you in a few.
Well, thank you for that nice introduction there, Kevin. And thanks, Vicki, for doing the login, KE8BKY. This is KO4QMM, Roger in Central Florida. Beautiful evening here. Looking forward to a fun night of Tuesday night Tech Net. Always here on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. If you're new listening in, check out eastcoastreflector.com. eastcoastreflector.com, all one word. You'll see a lot there, magazines, Zoom room, and a lot of fun nets. We have a good time. And I'll do the text check-ins as I normally do, and then Kevin will do the regular check-ins. And our question tonight is, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? And I have, and I had a lot of fun with it. I'm glad that they gave me a radio, and it came in really good use. So have a good time tonight with us and answer the question. So let me start at the bottom of the list. KI5 PMI, Bill Hobbs, New Mexico. K4MMX, Craig, Oakland Park, Florida. KQ4GWO. NZWZI, I do believe, in Oregon. K7FPS, KQ4UPK, Chris, Hollywood, Florida. W2RBC, Randy, team member, West Seneca, New York. K6AAN, Mike, Valley Springs, California. W4HOOO, Michael, Richmond, Virginia. WB8ODF, Dave, Ypsilanti, Michigan. K8-2KB2UDB, Mike, Sebring, Florida. KK4SED, Les, Claremont, Florida. WA2UUS, Joel, Buffalo, New York. K8BYU, Roy, Blaisdell, New York. And top of the list, KD2JPP, Bob, Gallatin, Tennessee. Good evening, Bob. And have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? Over.
Hey, good evening, Roger, and everybody else on the Tech Net. Yes, I did in the NYPD for many years. We used it also back in the NYPD, so that would be a yes for me. Thank you, Roger. Hope everybody stays safe and has a great week, and back to control.
And thank you, Bob, for getting in there and answering our question this evening. Roy, Blaisdell, New York, KABYU. Good evening, Roy. K8BYU, Roy, you still there? All right, that happens. A little deja vu on Tuesday Night Tech Net. WA2UUS, good evening, and have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Good evening, Roger, and everyone else on the net. The answer is no, I hadn't. I didn't get back into ham radio until I basically retired. I wish everyone a nice week ahead. Be well and be safe, and thank you, Roger and Vicky.
Mark, you're the man. Thank you, Joel. I got my logbook back. Had to reload my pager. Got a little nervous. Things are good, though. Les, Claremont, Florida, KK4SED. Good evening, Les.
Roger and everybody on the net. 80 degrees here in Claremont. Yes, I used to drive truck for a major automotive company. Radio was a requirement. KK4SED, back to net.
I tell you, it was really nice to have that radio on your side, especially before cell phones and all that. So, thanks for joining us. You have a great evening. Mike, Sebring, Florida, KB2UDB. Good evening, Mike. Did we wear you out, Mike? KB2UDB. He was on that check. Pretty sure. This is L4QMM, and we're going to move on to my buddy Dave, Ypsilanti, Michigan. WB8ODF. Good evening, Dave. Did you bail on me, Dave? All right, we'll just move on to Michael, Richmond, Virginia, W4HOO. Michael, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? This thing working? W4HOO, you there, Michael? Bunch of early birds didn't know that the net was going to go on so long, did you? Mike, Valley Springs, California, K6AAN. Did you hang in on us, Mike?
Well, I sure did, Rob. Good evening, and hello to everybody on the net. For work, 40 years in law enforcement. Back to net control. Have a great weekend, everybody. This is K6AAN.
Thanks for joining us, Mike. And yeah, you definitely needed your radio. W2RBC, my teammate Randy from West Seneca, New York. Good evening, Randy.
Member of the U.S. Coast Guard Aux for many years. We use VHFM radios for search and rescue missions. Back to net control, 73 to all, W2RBC.
Thanks for joining us, Randy. I knew you'd be a yes. Have a great evening. Chris from Hollywood, Florida, KQ4UPK. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, everybody. KQ4UPK. Chris over here in Hollywood, Florida. The only radio I ever had to use was an FM radio that played music. Yeah. The answer would actually be no. But just a little bit of comedy there. True comedy. KQ4UPK, back to net control.
Little jocularity is always welcome here, Chris. And I got a question for you, Hollywood, Florida. Did you feel any of that earthquake yesterday?
Oh, God, no, I didn't even think there was an earthquake yesterday. Anywhere near here, that's extremely rare and odd. But no, I can't believe that it was actually an earthquake that was close enough so that we could actually feel that. But no, I did not.
I did not either, but I'm up here a little bit more north, and a lot of people said they felt it, Tampa and stuff, and I guess it was right off the coast of Cuba, like a 6-point something, so check it out. Fred, Reno, Nevada, K7FPS. Good evening, Fred, and have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Hey, Vicki, Kevin, and Roger, and everyone on the net. Yes, whenever we were opening casinos and just trying to make them look pretty and shiny before the big spenders came in, of course, Motorola radios with headsets and the whole bit. And it was essential. K7FPS, back to net.
I bet the customers aren't allowed to wear them and use them. A lot of cheating could be going on there. Thanks for joining us. You have a great evening. Alan, my buddy in Oregon, N7WZI. Good evening, Alan.
I've done used them like 4 times, 5 times. First time I ever used it was in the military. Second time I used it for 6 years. Third time I've used them for just basic communications. And then I use them these days on GMRS frequencies for sign setting. So yes, 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 and yes.
To hear from you, and thanks for your service. Have a great evening. William, Wake Forest, North Carolina, KQ4GWO. Good evening, William.
Good evening, Net Control. Yes, I have. I worked in the environmental service for over 30 years. I'm working part-time right now. Yeah, retired. I'm a real lazy guy right about now. Keep on doing what you're doing, but y'all doing a great job, no doubt about it. This is William from beautiful Wake Forest, North Carolina. Been down for a little while, but I'm coming back. 73.
Good to hear from you, William, and have a wonderful night there. Craig, Oakland Park, Florida, K4MMX. Good evening, Craig, and have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Good evening again, everyone. Quick shout out to Press. I'm sorry if I came across a little brash there. But in any event, the answer to the question is yes. Used to work at a flea market, a local one called the Swap Shop. I did IT, cameras, all kinds of stuff, and they have a repeater on site and used to carry around a radio. Way better than a phone. K4 MMX, back to net.
Yeah, I remember mine clear back in the 90s, and my number was 35. We all had different numbers. I remember the mechanic shop was always 7. That guy had the best radio there at the shop. There's some useless information. This is KO4QMM Roger in Central Florida, and we got like 4 more text check-ins here, and then Kevin's going to call in for some general check-ins. KI5, PMI, Bill Hobbs, New Mexico. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Roger, everybody on the net. Yes, I do work a job that requires a radio, requires me to use a radio. Hope everybody has a good night. KI5, PMI, back to net.
Always a pleasure, Bill. Have a great night yourself. Jose, Austin, Texas, KJ5MEL. Good evening, Jose.
Evening, everybody in the net. Just the answer to the question is no, I haven't. But I sure have one around me all the time now. I don't use them for work, but maybe someday. And good week to everybody in the net. Thank you for doing it. KJ5MEL, back to net control.
Oh yeah, Jose, that just started the fuel going there. I love doing HF and stuff now. Still lots of radio stuff going on. So yeah, that just sparked the fire there. Thanks for joining us. K28 Joe, East Slip, New York. Always sound good on 20 meter net too. Good evening, Joe.
Me too, use a radio during work. But I sure do enjoy the Thursday morning.
Well, we definitely enjoy you being there, Joe, in the round table and in the Zoom room, and sometimes we just have a lot of fun, and that's what this hobby's all about. And last on my list, Scott, Jamestown, New York, N7SGP, one of our team members here. Good evening, Scott. And have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? Over.
Good evening, Roger, and everyone out there tonight. Yeah, I spent most of my career with a radio on my hip. Kind of felt naked without it. So, thanks for doing the net.
Always a pleasure to me. You have a good evening there, Scott, and thanks for joining us as always. That's it for me in the text check-ins. Next is Kevin, KE7K. He's going to do the general check-ins. Back to you, Kevin.
Very good, Roger. I appreciate you taking the text check-ins. This is KE7K again. We're going to start taking general check-ins. If you'd like to check in this evening, please come now with your call sign Slowly, please.
Kilo Foxtrot
November
Delta Julia, KF6 HDJ. This is WA9 ZPM, short time.
Sierra Golf, Kilo, November 6th, Golf, Sierra Golf.
N2BH, N2BH.
Kilo, Charlie 3, Foxtrot Golf Delta. Kilo, Charlie 3, Foxtrot Golf Delta.
Whiskey 3, Whiskey Bravo Bravo.
Whiskey 2, Sierra Alpha Lima. Whiskey 2, Sierra Alpha Lima.
All right, let me hold it up there. From the bottom up, KX9 BBY, W2SAL, W3 WBB, KC3 FGD, N2BH, WA9 ZPM, KN6 GSG, and KF6 HDJ. Brent, you're first up, KF6 HDJ.
Oh, good evening, everyone on the net. No, never got to use a radio at work. Would have been nice, but no. Back to net. Everyone have a great evening. KF6 HDJ.
7-3 Brent. Next up is Barry, KN6 GSG. Barry, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Greeting everybody. Yes, I did. In the early 70s, 72 or 73, I drove a cab, and we had Motorola radios in it. There's before cell phones and computers that everyone had, and that sort of stuff. So, yep, relied on the radio to get fares. The best fares were the radio fares. Thanks for being there. Thanks for letting me check in. KN6 GSG, back to net.
Have a good evening, Barry. Mike, WA9 ZPM. Good evening again.
It's WA9 ZPM. Well, yeah, I did. I was very rarely outside of the 35 years. I spent not quite 35 years.
Where we go?
It's WA9 ZPM. Am I getting in?
Side from the United Kingdom.
Hold on just a second, Mike. I'll pass it back to you. Station in the UK, you're breaking into a directed net. If you'd like to check in, we'll take calls here in a minute, but at the moment we have a list, and this is a directed net, so please stand by. Mike, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, okay, well, I could hear it because I can hear full duplex. I worked for just under 35 years repairing two-way radios for three different employers. One was Motorola, the other one was two companies working for Motorola dealers. Outside of that job, I just used it sporadically for a few things. But, yeah, I spent 35 years servicing them. This is the WA9 ZPM.
Thanks for participating, Mike. Next up is Bill, one of our systems facilitators into BH. Good evening, Bill.
Good evening, Kevin. Thank you for helping out tonight, and hello to Roger and Vicky. And oh yes, started out on DPW, and then fire department, police department, ambulance, bus, everything. Used it most of my life, and to BH.
Very good, Bill. Thanks for everything you do on the system. Ray, Elizabethton, Pennsylvania, KC3 FGD. Good evening, Ray.
Hey, good evening, Kevin, everyone on the net. Yeah, my entire working career, starting in 1964, working for Public Works. Back then we had the Motorola transceivers with that dynamotor in them. They were interesting. I can still hear that sound now when I hit the mic to that motor winding up. Very interesting. So I was superintendent of Public Works through several municipalities through the Northeast and retired in 2003. Always had a radio at hand. KC3 FGD back in net.
7-3 Ray, thank you for checking in. Eddie, Peru, New York, W3WBB.
Kevin, Roger, Vicky, everyone joining the net tonight. Hope everyone's evening is going well. Don't use radios in my day job, but volunteer for the fire service, which we couldn't do without radios, so getting quite a bit of use in there. And my wife also runs a small market where we take over a park once a month, and coordinating all the volunteers for that requires the radios as well. So get it in my volunteer gig. This is W3WBB Unclear, and hope everyone has a great night.
7-3 Eddie. Sal, I see you there in the Zoom room. W2SAL.
Evening brew crew out there and the late night shifters. Put me down for a yes. I did some service truck work where I had a radio, and then security work, which had the HTs. So with that, I'll send it back to net control. Everyone, good night, and catch you in the morning. USA all clear.
Thanks for checking in, Sal, and I see your coffee mug in the background. I've got that same one, and I appreciate how big it is, but yours looks vastly bigger than mine. A lot of coffee in that one. Thanks for checking in, Sal. All right, last on the list is Josh, KX9 BBY.
Good evening, Kevin. This is Josue, KX9 BBY. That is a negative for me. I've never had a job where I was required to use a radio. With that, good evening to everybody. Have a good night. And this is KX9 BBY, back to net control.
Thanks for checking in tonight, Josh. This is KE7K. My name is Kevin. I'm the current net controller for tonight's East Coast Reflector Tech Net, where we are taking general check-ins. If you'd like to check in this evening and answer tonight's question of the night, have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio? This is your chance to check in. Please come now with your call sign.
K-A-H-B-Y-U. K-A-H-B-Y-U. K6-GBZ. K6-GBZ.
K2AP recheck. K2AP recheck.
W4FWN, W4 Foxtrot Whiskey, November.
Okay, excuse me. We picked up 4 more stations. Dan, Joe, Tom, and Roy. All 3-letter names. W4FWN, K2AP, K6GBZ, and Roy, KA8BYU. Roy, I think you may have given Roger a complex. You didn't come back to him, but you came to me. Go ahead.
Good evening, Kevin. Sorry, Roger, but my doctor's office called me on the phone, and I couldn't exactly hang up on them. It was the screening question of an upcoming appointment, so it's just the timing. Sorry, but oh yeah, I've definitely had a couple jobs where required use of radio all the years in the airport. Used radio there, and then I did some security work for a couple festivals and all that, and we had radio there, so yeah, I think 56 years out of 73 qualifies for a good long time using radios of some form or another. Back to you.
I'm glad you could get in, no matter who it was with, Roy. Thanks for always being there. Tom, Cameron Park, California, N6GBZ.
Correction is K6GBZ. Hello, everyone on the net. In answer to your question, I wonder if working as a radio DJ counts. Technically, it's with a radio, but otherwise, no, I've not had a job with a radio. Everyone have a great night. Cheers.
Well, I was going to let it slide, Tom, but we had a little dissension in the Zoom room, so we'll have to take it to council, but we've got you down as a DJ. Appreciate you checking in. Joe, K2AP. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening. Yeah, I don't know what happened before with Roger. I just disconnected from the node. But anyway, my answer is no, I have never used a radio for work. I hope I'm still connected. K2AP, back to net.
Yeah, you're totally still connected, Joe, and got you in the clear that time. Appreciate you checking in. Dan, you're last on the list at the moment, W4FWN. Good evening.
Well, good evening to everyone on the net. This is WFWN. I have kind of a answer different than everybody else's. I worked for IBM and used a piece of equipment made by Motorola. It was called we called it a person. Affectionately, we called it a brick. We never talked. We got our calls on it. We could check on things, and we submitted our calls on it to complete them, but never talked. So anyway, a little different than everybody else's. I guess, yes, you might say I did need, and we did have to use it. I did use a radio in my work. Control, this is W4FWN.
Well, thanks for checking in, Dan. Good to talk to you again. Been a while since I net controlled and was able to pick you up. Thanks for being there. This is KE7K with the East Coast Reflector Tech Net. We are open for general check-ins. Please come now with your call sign.
at 0 CKV.
Alpha 3 Mike Romeo, AA3MR.
Kilo Foxtrot 8, Foxtrot Sierra, X-ray, KF8, Echo 6.
Mike/Whiskey Alpha 1, Quebec Whiskey Alpha. This is 9 Yankee 4 Delta X-ray. 9Y4 DX, Bertrand.
November 5, Golf Charlie, Quebec, 5GCQ, Texas. Oh,
Echo 7, Oscar Mike Uniform.
We picked up 7 more stations from the bottom up. KE7OMU, N5GCQ, Bertrand, NY4DX, Barry, WA1QWA, KF8S, FSX, Karen, welcome back, Walt, AA3MR, and Mark, N0CKV. Mark, you came in first here. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
Good evening, Kevin and the rest of the Tech Net crew. Yes, I had a job where I built code plugs for radios, and it required me to test them every day. Everybody have a great night, and 0 CKV back to net.
7-3 Mark, Walt, AA3MR.
Hello to you, and good evening, everybody on the net this evening. Yes, I was a EMT firefighter in hazmat and rescue and / security at U.S. Steel Clerton Works, and we used all the two-way radios to communicate back and forth. And the job now that I have, same place at U.S. Steel Clerton Works, I use the radios to communicate to the battery foreman and to be up on the coke oven batteries, and we have to have them for safety. So, alrighty, everybody have a great night. Take care, God bless, and stay safe out there. Back to net control. This is AA3MR Walt, just south of Pittsburgh.
Have a good rest of your evening, Walt. Thanks for spending part of it with us. Karen, KF8FSX, welcome back to the net.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for the team for helping out for the Tech Net and everyone on the net tonight. I do currently use radios in my day job. I am a current public safety dispatcher for police, fire, and medical. Okay, that's it.
Have a good evening, Karen. Barry, WA1QWA. Have you ever used have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
This is M/WA1QWA. Most definitely, I was Merchant Marine, 13 years. 500 kilohertz was my favorite, but we used HF and VHF. And overall, it was really fun. Other than on Christmas Day, we had a man, we lost him overboard. 10 hours later, we picked up his body. And amazing coordination of ships in order to find the 3 ships following in track lines.
KE7K. Thank you for checking in tonight, Barry, and answering tonight's question. Bertrand, 9 Yankee 4, Delta X-Ray. Good to hear you.
Well, a pleasant evening to you, Net Control, Kevin, KE7K. Quite some time, Kevin, as we haven't had a contact, but I hope you're doing well and you're safe. Well, let me say no up front. However, let me explain. Disaster preparedness did train me to be a radio personnel, which I am today. However, it was only in emergencies that they would put together a unit so that we can do the emergency. However, I was never able to do any emergency because it didn't reach to that point. So that's it from me. Hope everyone has a pleasant week and catch you again. Back to you, Net Control, KE7K. This is 9Y4. Yes.
It has been a while, Bertrand. Glad I was able to pick you up tonight. Thanks for checking in. Charles in Porter, Texas, N5GCQ.
This is N5GCQ, Charles in Porter, Texas. Yes, I work for the local utility company, and I maintained all the equipment that our transmission dispatchers use. That included the radio, and I had to talk on it for various reasons. So yes, I was one of the ones that did have to use the radio for my work. This is N5GCQ. Good evening to the net.
Good evening, Charles. Thanks for checking in. Last on the list at the moment is Terry in Maryville, Tennessee, KE0OMU. Excuse me, KE7OMU. Go ahead, Terry.
I had to use a radio in security work quite often, so I throw that in there. Kilo Echo 7, Oscar Mike Uniform, back to that.
7-3 Terry, thank you for checking in. All right, we are again open for general check-ins. If you would like to check in this evening and answer tonight's question, please come now with your call sign. Going once, going twice. Final call for anybody that would like to check in this evening to the East Coast Reflector Tech Net. Please come now.
Whiskey 4, Romeo Kilo Delta. Hope I'm not too late. Checking in. Might be the last one here tonight.
November Alpha number 2, Fox, NA2F.
Okay, David, recognize you, W4RKD. I thought you were going to be the last as well. And then Antonio snuck in just behind you there, NA2F. We'll close the net after you two. David in Orlando, Florida, welcome to the net. Doesn't look like you checked in with this net before. W4RKD, good evening.
The question was about if we've ever used radios for my job. I certainly have, work in security, and Motorola radios all the time, analog and digital. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for checking in, David. Yeah, pretty consistent tonight. Most people have used a radio. We're over 75% at yes. So I don't think Antonio is going to move that meter much, but we still want to hear what his answer is. Antonio, NA2F, have you ever used it? Excuse me. Have you ever had a job that required you to use a radio?
NA2F. Oh, definitely. 45 years, firefighter, paramedic.
Yeah, very good. We had several public service people use radio, so I don't think I ever answered the question. I didn't have a job that I directly used a radio to communicate with anybody, but one of my last programming projects at Costco when I worked there was RFID on trucks. So sort of as a second layer, I've worked with it as a job. So very good. I appreciate everybody that's checked in. Roger, appreciate your help. Vicki, appreciate your help very much on the log. And on behalf of the entire East Coast Reflector team, I'd like to thank all stations who participated and those who stood by to give us a clear reflector. This is Kilo Echo 7 Kilo, returning the East Coast Reflector to normal use. Good evening, everybody.
November 1 Alpha Kilo Fox. I'm doing a quick test. N1AKF. Anybody got a copy?
NA2F, November Alpha number 2 Fox. Yeah, I have a copy. You have good audio.
Okay, NA2F, thank you very much. A call here is N1AKF, name's Bill, in Connecticut, and I took this radio out of the box today, and just programmed it. That's it. It's one of these cheapy Baofangs UV32s, but it's a sharp-looking radio. Looks like one of those Motorola's, but of course a lot less of a deal here, but beautiful-looking radio. Just wanted to know how it sounded.
Well, I have one too. No, sounding good. You got it programmed right.
Little hotspot here in the house. Hey, 7-3, I listened to some of the net tonight. It sounded pretty good. And I do appreciate coming back for a quick signal report here, radio check. 73, N1AKF in Connecticut. I'll be clear with you. Have a good night.
All right, sir. Good night to you as well. NA2F will be clear.
W0 LAB.
W0 LAD, NA2F. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, name here is Logan. I'm located in Miami, Florida. Call sign Whiskey Zero Lima Bravo. Just wanting to wave a hand at you before I make it to the home QTH here.
Copy. Well, thank you very much, sir. Yeah, I'm about a mile and a half out as well. I'm located just outside of Utica, New York.